Presidential candidate, Republican billionaire Donald Trump, is going to Mexico tomorrow to meet with the president of that country, Enrique Nieto. This is a meeting that political analysts and pundits would never imagine would have taken place unless Trump actually becomes the next president of the United States. Based on Trump's inflammatory remarks that he would build a wall along the border with Mexico, and then make Mexico pay for that wall, which of course was never realistic or never going to happen. Nieto said that he would never meet with Donald Trump, yet the two are going to meet tomorrow. Gee, I wonder what they're going to talk about. Would they be exchanging perhaps taco or burrito recipes? Highly unlikely. Instead, this is being billed by the Trump campaign as some sort of summit. They're going to talk about security issues, border control issues, immigration, and trade. Now, speaking of Mexico, because Mexico is a supposed ally of the United States, it is America's third largest trading partner, thanks to NAFTA, which of course has benefited Mexico enormously, but America not so much. The Mexican government now is issuing transit visas to African immigrants so that they can go to, guess where? The United States. About 20% of the Mexican population is in America, and much of the money earned by Mexicans in the United States, especially illegally, is of course sent back home to their country. The issue of illegal immigration in America is a hot button one. Most Americans want an immigration system that really works instead of one that is dysfunctional and is a joke, as it has been, especially under the Obama administration. The former and now disgraced chairman or chairwoman of the Democratic National Party, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, has apparently won her Florida primary. This is evidence that voters just don't care about ethics, morals, or corruption anymore. Wasserman Schultz, of course, helped rig the election by her party in favor of Hillary Clinton. The political deal that the Clintons cut with Wasserman Schultz, who is now a co-chair of Clinton's campaign. She was awarded that post about 3 hours after she resigned in disgrace over an email leak that proves that many of the Democrats are really racist. They refer to Hispanics as the taco voters or the taco vote. And of course, the emails confirm that the election was rigged and that the party always favored Hillary Clinton, despite official claims that it was neutral, quote unquote. The Sanders campaign had long complained about this. The collusion and cooperation was always brazenly obvious, witnessed and reported on by several people, but of course ignored by Wasserman Schultz. The deal that Wasserman Schultz cut with the Clintons, apparently, is that she will be given a cushy cabinet post should Hillary Clinton become the next president of the United States. Speaking of Clinton and Donald Trump, polls indicate that Trump is now leading in the polls by about 3 points. The race is still too close to call, and of course a lot can happen between now and when voters cast their ballots in November. And speaking of voting, the Department of Homeland Security has now said that it's going to try to take charge or custody of overseeing the U.S. presidential election. The concern of the Department of Homeland Security is basically this, and it's a very valid concern. In fact, it's long overdue. There are people who claim that voter ID should not be allowed, that people can just walk in, vote for whomever. They don't even have to show ID in some places. And they try to minimize the fact that voter fraud does occur. Now we find out that Russian hackers have actually compromised voting systems and voting board entities in at least 2 states. And it's no secret that Russia's Vladimir Putin, as well as a lot of American enemies and our wonderful partner, China, would love to see Trump become president instead of Hillary Clinton. It's not that they don't like Hillary, it's just that they feel that they can get their way more with Trump, who has no political experience. And since Hillary Clinton is more of an overseas adventurist, just look at the mess in Syria that her and Obama caused, the mess in Libya as well, they feel that since Trump is not quite the interventionist that Hillary is, naturally they'd rather see him in power. Now, if there is voter fraud detected, it remains to be seen as to how authorities will deal with it, but the fact that the Department of Homeland Security is now looking at this issue is very, very interesting. Huma Abedin, Hillary Clinton's top aide, she would likely be chief of staff should Hillary win the White House. She's now been photographed by the media no longer wearing her wedding ring. She also announced on Twitter that she has separated from her husband, the now disgraced Congressman Anthony Weiner. Abedin is apparently separated from her husband in the aftermath of yet another sexting scandal. The New York Post originally blew the story of another photograph of Weiner photographing his private parts while he was holding their son, and he was sexting to other women, at least one of them. One of those women went public. The news came out on the front page of the New York Post. It then went viral on the internet. Abedin was once disgraced yet again, and now she has said in her own tweets that she has separated from her husband and she asked that her privacy be respected. Time will tell as to see how this comes out, but this is just the latest circus to surround Hillary Clinton's campaign for President of the United States. Barack Obama, the President of the United States, of course, is claiming that he now has a way to get his pet trade agreement, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, through both houses of Congress. That would be Congress and the Senate. Now, this is rather interesting since Obama claims that he's a job maker, not a job killer. Yet, if you look at what the TPP does, it will cost thousands of Americans their jobs. All the major trade unions are against it, as are most politicians from both parties. That includes the Democrats and the Republicans. Now, it's natural to expect the Republicans to be against anything Obama wants, but to see the Democrats also not supporting this agreement is rather curious. Time will tell if Obama can get this passed through Congress and signed into law before he leaves power. He only has a few more months in office. Hillary Clinton says she's against the pact. This is before she was one of its strongest and most vehement champions and advocates of it. If you try to keep track of Hillary's flip-flops, she says it doesn't meet her gold standard or high standard. Well, in other words, she's changed her mind, because when she was out on the campaign trail pandering for votes as usual, Hillary got an earful and found out that most Americans do not want this agreement, which is why she has changed her position. Her excuse that it doesn't meet her standards that she hoped for is just rhetorical nonsense. It's about as truthful as her claim that she turned over all relevant documents to the Department of State from her private email server. Speaking of her private email server, the FBI has found, again, over 14,900 emails that Clinton never bothered to turn over. She just couldn't be bothered to do so. These are emails that her lawyers couldn't be bothered to turn over either. Among those, at least 30 of these documents contain information about Benghazi and theoretically the terrorist attack that occurred that night that killed 4 Americans, including Ambassador Stevens. The State Department has said it will need a few weeks to review the material before deciding whether to release it. Hillary Clinton now has had a couple of dozen questions submitted to her in the form of what the courts are considering to be a deposition. Judicial Watch, which is a private group that has sued Clinton over releasing this material, as well as the Department of State. Clinton via the lawsuit, not a direct party. has indicated, as have the courts, that this will be a deposition by Clinton, essentially under oath. Although she won't physically be present, she will have to respond in writing to questions. This will be interesting since her lawyers will continue to spin things, never mind the facts and reality.